Work for the Israeli American Council, also known as the IAC. Basically, the IAC is a non-profit organization that it has two main goals: to build an Israeli American community and to build a bridge between the Israeli American to the Jewish American community. In my role, I manage the activism department. Now we have a different name for it: fighting anti-Semitism and civic engagement. And basically what it means that I oversee everything that's related to anti-Semitism in New Jersey in general, and more specifically within the public education system on campuses. As you probably know, the situation right now is not so great. So we have our way to fight it is mainly through education. So we have different initiatives that to bring education. We work with teens. We have a teenagers program that basically we educate them about anti-Semitism and Israel hatred, how to advocate for Israel. We have a project that's called 6 Million Steps, which we actually, 2 districts in New Jersey participated in it, in public schools, where they walk in the memory of the 6 million lives and to commemorate the Holocaust and to bring awareness to anti-Semitism. And many other different things. I put some flyers over there about the teens program for next year. It's good for high schoolers, and they will actually need to lead initiatives within their public schools to bring this education into their peers. And that's it. I'm very honored to have Chaya here today. I think it's important that we keep telling these stories and, to bear witness to it and to share with our friends, colleagues, and peers for future generations. So thank you so much, Chaya, for being here today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Chaya Farkas. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I'm a child Holocaust survivor. I was 5 years old when the Holocaust did not started when in Budapest the Hitler and the Nazis came in to Budapest and they took over and they started to deport the Jewish people to Auschwitz and start to collect them and take them to the ghetto. And I was 5 years old that time, and it happened exactly on my birthday. It was March 19, when they came in the morning, and I remember a lot of things, almost everything what happened. Even if I was a small girl, that it was a very tragic things for me and for my family, whatever happened that day. And my father was home that day, and he left in the afternoon, and we didn't see him for another year at least. We didn't know what happened to him. We don't know if he's alive or where is he. Till the Russian people came in 1945 with January 18 and liberated Budapest, and my father returned the same day that time. My mother and my grandmother was staying in Budapest, and me and my brother was also in the same apartment for a short time, and after that my mother put us into the Red Cross, Swedish Red Cross orphanage home, because she figured if they're not going to live through the Holocaust, at least we should be survived. There was a man, they called him Raoul Wallenberg, who tried to save the Jewish people in Hungary, and he was the one who organized these homes, and he took these kids into that home, and he made an agreement with the German government and Hitler, not the government, with Hitler, and this home, they weren't allowed to come in. So we were there approximately about 3 months, and after 3 months, the Nazis and the Germans came in, and they told us to go out to the street, and they made us march to the ghetto, and they took all the kids out from the home, and they didn't honor the agreement with Raoul Wallenberg anymore. And the children who was sick, like my brother, he was sick, he had a scarlet fever, and he was in the infirmary, and they left these kids, they left them in the infirmary, and they killed them right there. I don't know how. I had that feeling. I have a brother and I have to save him. And I went into the infirmary, grabbed his hand, pulled him out from his bed, and I pulled him with me. And he was not dressed. I think he had only an undershirt and underpants on, and I don't remember if he had the shoes on. And that was around in October time. So Hungary in October it's cold. The winter start and it's get cold. I know I had no coat, nothing, only a dress on, and so all the children who could walk, they made us to walk. And we didn't know where gonna take us, so we wind up in the ghetto, and the ghetto had a very big park, and they had trees in the park, and they put us over there. And before the ghetto, this area was like a marketplace. They were selling vegetables and they were selling fruit, and they had a building, and the building wasn't heated, and the windows was broken, and they kept the children overnight in that building. Me and my brother was standing and waiting what's gonna happen to us, and the Nazis was around, surrounded us, around us, and they didn't let us go anywhere. We were not to leave from there, we had to stay there. And somehow my mother found out here the children came from the Red Cross, Swedish Red Cross, to that park, and she came and she was looking for us. And she found us, and she came over to us and said to me and my brother, don't say anything, don't say a word, just follow me, you know? And we followed my mother, and when she was walking out, one of the Nazis said to her, where are you going, where you take these children? And she said, that was the same Nazi who let her go into the park. And she said, I'm not taking them anywhere. I'm just gonna take them to give them a little food, because you see, he is sick, he has a high fever, and she is starving, and they're gonna die anyway. So I'm gonna bring them back. I have no place to keep them, I'm gonna bring them back. So he was probably a soft-hearted person, and he said, okay, then make sure you bring them back. So my mother said to us, just follow me, don't say anything, don't cry, don't anything. So the ghetto was approximately about 20-25 blocks around the Jewish area, because that's where they made the ghetto in Budapest. And the house where my mother and my grandmother lived was right on the corner from the park. So my mother went and she went around the 25 blocks till she went into the house, and she made sure nobody followed her and nobody saw where we're going. And she took us in, and she had a one-bedroom apartment, and we were about 5-6 people in the same apartment. And my brother was very sick. He had 105 temperature, he had a scarlet fever, and he was in a very bad condition. And my mother needed to get some medication and some kind of doctor who would help. And we were lucky because we had a doctor in the ghetto, was a lady doctor, and my mother called her and she said to the doctor, if you come and bring a medication to my son, then I will give you beautiful clothing. My parents had a factory before the war. My mother and father worked, they made pajamas, they made shirts, and they made some ladies nightgowns too, you know. So my mother had beautiful nightgowns, and she was willing to give away if the doctor gonna bring medicine. And she said, yeah, I will come and I will bring medicine. She came every single day, and she brought medicine for my brother, and my mother gave her all the clothing, whatever she had, and my brother got better. When my father came back in 1945, my brother was 80% healthier, you know. And so we stayed in the ghetto, and we were staying with that one room. The one bedroom was very small and was all the way in the back. So my mother told us if anybody comes to the house, and right away we should go over there to the back room, and we should hide in the back room and don't come out. Doesn't matter what, you cannot come out from there. And my brother was staying in that room constantly because the scarlet fever is very contagious sickness. And my mother went, and she put up a sign, and she said there is a child who has scarlet fever, and if you have small children in the house, don't come in because it's very contagious. So the Germans were very scared from sickness, you know, and when they saw the sign, nobody came into the house, so we were safe, you know. And we didn't have food. Food we didn't have. We got once a day, they brought it from outside, the spaghetti and tomato sauce. And everybody who lived in the apartment was it was an apartment house, approximately about 40, 50 families. And they brought in a big container of spaghetti and tomato sauce, and everybody got like a ladle, you know, full of food for a whole day. That was for a whole day. It was no bread, was no meat, nothing. Just once a day, that's what we had. So we were starving, you know, and we were in that ghetto till January 18, till the Russian people came in, and the Russian army came in and liberated Hungary. And then Hitler ideal was he will not going to keep the ghetto any longer. He's going to blow up a ghetto in January 19. That was the date. And in January 18, we were lucky when the Russian army came in and liberated us. If we would be another day, nobody would survive and probably in the ghetto. And as it is, a lot of people, you know, elderly people was dying and from starving and from sickness, you know. And so we stayed till then. So my father came back in January 18 with the Russian army came. He wasn't in the Russian army, that he came with them together. He was in the working camp, not Auschwitz. He was in up in the mountain. They collect the Hungarian men and take them out to work, and they put them against the enemy armies to, you know, dig holes, build things, you know, and that's what my father was doing. He was lucky because he was a very strong person, and he was working, and he escaped a couple of times because a lot of Jewish men tried to escape, and if the Nazis find out somebody escaped, they select 10 people and they kill the 10 people, you know. And it's happened to him about 3 times, maybe more, when they select him, and he was lucky. I always said Hashem was with him, because the last minute, either a bomb killed the person who's supposed to kill the 10 people, or anything else happened, disturbed the shooting or something, that he survived. You know, and some of his friends survived with him, you know, And so when he found out the Russian army goes on the right side and the German army was in the left side, so they were going between the two armies until he reached Budapest. And when he reached Budapest, he met the Russian army there, and they asked him if he knows how to get into Budapest, because the German army didn't want to give up the city, and they were fighting from 3 to 3s. And in Hungary, in Budapest and the city, there is a lot of parks and a lot of trees. So every trees, somebody was hiding, and tried to kill the enemies, And he told them he knows how to get in, and he knows the road, and he showed them how to come in, and he came in, and he went to the house where we used to live, and he couldn't find us there. And the superintendent was a non-Jewish person, and my parents support her and the family a lot, because we were well off before the war. And my father said to her, if you're going to save my family, because my father saw, anti-Semitism was before I was born in Hungary. And my parents knew if something gonna happen and gonna be, gonna kill the Jewish people, because they were collecting Jewish men in a year before Hitler came in to Budapest. So to take them away to work. And so my father and my mother told her, we're gonna give you money and we're gonna support you. If anything gonna happen, you save my family, at least you save my children, and what. And she was a nice person, and she did. And she was helping my mother a lot, because before my parents, before my mother and grandmother went to the ghetto, the Nazis used to come up to the house and select people, and they took young people out of the city, and they deport them to Auschwitz. From March 19 till I think July, they took 800,000 Hungarian to the concentration camp from Budapest and around Budapest, so from Hungary originally. And not too many people came back from Auschwitz at that time. And so what happened is my father came to the house and was looking for us, and we weren't there, and somebody else was living in our house. And he went to the superintendent and he said, "Where is my family?" So she said, "Last time I knew they were in the ghetto." And my father said, "Where in the ghetto? Give me the address." So she did, and my father left. He had a Russian uniform and he had a gun, And he said, "I'm gonna look for my family. If I don't find them and they're not alive, I'm gonna kill you. I come back and I'm gonna kill you." And my father came and looked for us, and probably she gave the wrong address, or maybe my father made a mistake about the house. He couldn't find us. He went back and he said to her, "I can't find my family. You better come with me and show me where they live, where they took them, And she said, "I can't go to the street because a lot of dead body there and a lot of animals, and when it's a war, it's, they don't clean the street, they don't." So my father said, "If you don't come, I kill you right here." And that said, "Doesn't matter, my family is alive or not." So she came and they found us, and she was the happiest person in that life, in that day. And so we were happy too. We were happy to see my father. And then my father went back to the apartment where we used to live, and he saw other people lived in the apartment. So he told them, "Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment?" They said, "We moved here and we're living here." So my father said to that same thing. He said, I'll be back in 3 hours. If you're still here, you're not going to be alive. If you want to be alive, you better leave right now. And when he went back later that afternoon, the apartment was empty. So we stayed in the ghetto for a couple of days, and after that we moved back to the apartment. And my brother got well, and my grandmother got very sick after that. You know, she got well after that, you know, because my father tried to get some food, was no kosher food available. We were happy to eat anything, whatever we got, what was really hardly anything. And then we stayed in Hungary till 1956, 57. So after that, we was a revolution in 1956, and we went to Israel. So me and my brother, my parents, and my grandmother also went to Israel, and we stayed there. And I met my husband in Israel, and I got married, and I came here. That's what it is. And go back to the ghetto. It's the situation was a really bad situation because we didn't know if we will survive the next day. And we didn't know if what's going to happen, and we don't know if when they're going to come and kill us. So as a kid, a 5-year-old kid, I know my mother and my grandmother and my grandmother's sister was there, and everybody was talking about it. So I remember the things, what they talking about it and what they saying, you know, and we had that scare. I mean, I was scared, you know, what's going to be with us and what's going to happen to us. And after the war, even then, the subject was the war. Every night when we get together and had dinner, my father was telling us stories, and my mother was telling what happened, and my mother was telling even what happened when we weren't with her. We were in the Swedish Red Cross home, and she used to come visit us to the home, and after a while they told her not to come, and they don't let her in anymore. And then after that she couldn't even go out to the street because they said it's not safe. They were collecting the Jewish people from the street. You know, if anybody went out, and we had to wear a yellow star. So they knew that you know, she's Jewish, and they just collect them, put them on the wagon, you know, to the train, and they send them to Auschwitz. So it wasn't even safe. So she couldn't even come to visit us. So we had a couple of months where we completely lost contact with my parents, and me and my brother, only 2 of us was together, you know, and I don't know, it's just, it's a beshert, what they say, because as I was small, 5 years old, I knew I have a brother and I have to save my brother and that's how I saved my brother, you know, and the rest of the children unfortunately got killed. They took him overnight, they took him to that building where the marketplace, and the next day they took him to the Danube and they killed them. And the kids who was in the infirmary was killed right there. Everybody was killed there. So that's the story. If you have any question, I'm willing to answer.
How old was your brother?
Tommy?
How old was your brother?
My brother was 3 years old. He was a baby. And he said to me he doesn't remember things that he said, he told his children not, you know, he was telling his children all the time that not long ago when I was in Toronto, he lives in Toronto, and he said, we get together with the family, and his children said to me, thank you, you saved my father, you know? So he told them, you know, I was there. So I said, it was a bashert, we should be alive. That's it, you know.
Do you know why your parents decided to stay in Hungary after the war?
Yes,
Do you know?
yeah, because we are a very close family. We were always a very close family. And after the war, everybody was very weak, you know. We were very, very skinny, and we had no food, nothing. And I had a grandmother who was in the 70s, and other grandmother also, she was in the 70s. So my father said, I can't escape with two babies and two elderly women. We cannot go anywhere, you know? And he had his brother, and then my mother and my father was waiting for his sibling to come back from Auschwitz, but they never returned. My mother lost his brother, her brother, and my father lost his sister there. And we were waiting for, you know, they're gonna come back, and then, you know, so they start to make a living in Hungary, you know, after the war. And then my grandmother passed away, my father's side, and then they closed the border, so we weren't allowed to go anywhere. So we got stuck in Hungary, and then the communism came, you know, and there was a communist government, and the situation was really bad. And my father wasn't a communist, he was against that. And he had a hard time to make a living first, till they find out they're gonna start making like a flea market thing. So they left Saturday night, 12 o'clock, midnight, to travel to out of town, and they came home Thursday. So a whole week they were on the road, and they were selling, they started out with shirts and pajamas, and then they were doing pocketbooks, you know, whatever they could make. And then we went to school. First they had an elementary school, a grade 1 and 2 in the Jewish school. They opened up in one of the buildings in Hungary, and then they closed up. And we had to go to the public school, you know, and my parents was Shana Shabbos all the time, and we had a problem because my father said, he came home and he said, I promise God, if I come home and find my family, I'm gonna keep Shabbat and kosher house. And they did that before too. A lot of people changed. After the war, they were changed. And he said he's not gonna change. And that's what happened. He came home and he promised, and he kept his promise till he passed away. I mean, we are all Shana Shabbos, my children too. So, we had to go to school on Shabbos that we didn't have to carry, you know. So Saturday morning I walked to school and I walked back. The books, everything we left it in school because we told them I can't carry and I can't do anything, you know. And we didn't write. I had a friend who was writing and gave me the copy next day or whatever. And after that, when was the communism, after 8th grade, they told me I cannot go further. I can go to college, I can go to high school, you know, I have to go to work. So my father said, no, my children is not gonna go to work. You know, finish 8th grade and just go out to work. What kind of work? You know, no profession, nothing, you know. So the Jewish Orthodox organization, you know, like a synagogue, they made a high school for children like me who cannot go further education, go to high school and college. We couldn't even dream about it, you know. So they had, they were renting a building, and was approximately 80 children, 20 kids in each class, and was boys and girls separate in the building. So that was the high school. Then we were lucky because we had very good teachers. All the teacher was Jewish, and we had very good teachers. So, and then the government accepted the graduation. So I graduated from high school, you know, that I couldn't go to college anymore, you know, in Hungary. So then the revolution came in 1956, when the border opened up and people was running. Then we couldn't run again because my grandmother was with us and we didn't want to leave her. And my father found out that the Israeli consulate is giving out visa to go to Israel. And that time he decided we are leaving, we are going to Israel. And we got the passport and we got the visa, and it took us approximately 6 months to left Budapest, Hungary. We couldn't take much with us, so we went to Israel with almost nothing. And when we arrived, I remember my grandmother kissed the floor in Israel, you know, and she was very happy. That's I can't forget. You know, we were near, you know, Kiryat Hayovel. So we got, first we were in the Mabara in Kiryat Hayovel, and then my parents bought an apartment there, and we lived there, you know. So when we were traveling from Haifa to Jerusalem, as was in the evening time, and there wasn't a road like now, you know, a narrow road, and next to the road near Yerushalayim was little houses, and one of the building had like a little porch, and a Hasidish man was sitting and davening there, or learning something, and my grandmother saw that, and she was so happy. She said she doesn't care if she's gonna die now, that at least she will die here. And she's buried in Har HaMenahot. So, yeah.
I have a request, please, especially for the younger generation, because you kept mentioning that you guys lived in a ghetto, and I'm not sure the kids really know what a ghetto is and how it looks like and how was the living condition in the ghetto.
The living condition was very bad. So the ghetto was surrounded by fence, you know. It was, imagine about 20 blocks, approximately, you know, 20
Streets.
streets, yes, 20 streets, and lengthwise and a wide way, you know, and they put a fence around, you know, like fences, they're very high fences, so you couldn't climb through, you know. And they had 2 doors, one door in the front and one door they had in the back. And then soldiers were standing in the front door and in the back door. So nobody could go out and in without they should let them in, you know. And people who lived in the ghetto was only Jewish people, you know. And I don't think too many children, because I don't remember if any, you know, I mean, we didn't associate with the children. We didn't go to the courtyard or a backyard to play, because we were not allowed to go, you know. And mostly elderly people and very few young people who lived there. And there were no grocery store, no candies, no chocolate, no cakes, nothing in there, you know. And once a day, they give us food, you know, spaghetti. Every single day we got spaghetti and tomato sauce, you know, mix it up, and that's what they give us. And you couldn't listen to the radio, you didn't have television, It was like a jail, you know. Can you imagine a jail? You know, and the people is watching you, what you're doing, and where you're going, and what you're saying, and that's what it is. That's what the ghetto is. So, anything else you would like to know? Was no toys. We had no toys. You know, we slept on the floor. Was maybe one bed, I think, in the house. And the bathroom was out in the courtyard. Was no shower, no bathtub. So it was a poor condition, you know. And people, about 40 family approximately live. And that area was like a poor area, not apartments with 2-3 bedrooms. Most of the people had 1 bedroom. And the people who lived there before, non-Jewish people, they were moved out from there, and they moved them to the different area to the city, and the Jewish people was moved into that area. You know, because they were watching us every day, every single minute.
What did you do to pass time?
Nothing. Talking to each other. Nothing. I don't remember. I know my grandmother and my mother was talking. Was not even, you know, not like a family could get together, or people, neighbors nobody get together. Everybody was locked in their own apartment. So was no sociable. In the beginning, maybe was some, because when they had a bunker, and when the Russian came in and they started bombing Budapest, you know, and we went down to the bunker, and after that they closed the bunker down, so we couldn't go down there, because I heard one of the bomb hit one of the side of the bunker, and you can't go, wasn't safe to go. So we didn't socialize with other people. You know, sometimes I think my grandmother, sister, husband was in the ghetto, and because one of his leg was missing, so they did take him and just throw him in the ghetto, and he was the one who was going to the door and talking to the soldiers, who was friendly maybe or what, and heard what's happening outside, you know. And he used to come and say, look, we heard the Russians are not far away, maybe a day, maybe 2 days. That wasn't true. I mean, we didn't know it's a true story or not. So we didn't know anything what's going on outside.
No phones?
You know?
No cell phones?
No devices.
No.
We had, my mother, I don't know exactly how it happened, that I know was 2 young Jewish boy who was working outside of the ghetto. And the night time they came in. I don't know what they were doing. I'm not so sure if they were like a Jewish spies, you know, something like that. I know they came in, and when they came in, they came to our house, and they were hiding in the night time. They were hiding somewhere in the courtyard in the back, or maybe in the back room they were staying, something like that. Then they disappeared in the morning, you know. These 2 guys, I don't know who was these 2 guys, and I don't remember exactly. Then my mother, after we moved back to our home, said these 2 guys went out to Israel. So they went to Israel. I know that. And one of the relatives, also a far relative, who was also that same home than we were, me and my brother. And my mother told one of our relatives, he saw that boy also in the park. And that relative, I think that was my grandmother's sister, who went out and get this boy. And he was staying with them, and after the war he went to Israel and he became one of the higher rank in the army, IDF, you know. I don't know because I lost touch with them, so I really don't know what happened to that. That's I know, because my parents was talking about it and we always heard. So everything, my parents talked front of us, everything we knew, everything what's going on and what happened and everything. And then when I met my husband in Israel, and he came to America in 1947 after the war. He was in Auschwitz, you know, and he was a survivor, and he came to Israel to see his sister because his sister lived in Israel, and he was in Auschwitz, and he didn't talk about too much what was going on in Auschwitz. That he was saying certain things, so we know, approximately we know what was, in Auschwitz. And approximately about 15 years ago, maybe more, I took a trip. I was in Hungary and I went to Auschwitz and Birkenau to see, and so they showed what happened. And unfortunately, I saw the family names in there, that we lost, yeah. So that's how I know things also.
Your husband is also from Hungary, or?
Romania, from Satmar.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they, from Satmar, they took everybody to Auschwitz, and only 3 people came back from, yeah, 2 of them. He and his brother, he and his sister survived Auschwitz, and he had a brother, older brother, who was working to the underground, and he was in jail in Romania, so he survived. So 3 of them, they were 11 children. Yeah.
How many years were they in Auschwitz?
He was in Auschwitz. He was a last transport. They took him from Satmar. That was in July in 1944. And he came back in, I think Auschwitz was liberated in March or April, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he was there about 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And from Auschwitz, he was in March to Theresienstadt. He was one of the person who marched there to the, yeah. He was 17 years old. Yeah. So that's how I know these stories, but
Any questions?
That's my grandmother and her sister was sent from Austria. They were sent age 15 to Israel by themselves to live in Israel. So try to imagine, guys, being 15, sent by yourself, no parents, no family, sent to a foreign country that looked totally different than what we used to, because you come from Europe. The family was wiped in the Holocaust.
She was lucky.
Huh?
She was lucky.
And she was sent by herself to live in Israel, all by herself with her sister. That's it. That was the family left. Nobody else.
After the war?
No. Before the war, her parents recognized something going on, and they just put them on the next boat to Israel. And there is pictures from that you see my grandmother in Revivim in the desert, like trying to. But they lived there by themselves until
Where
the
did
end
they
of
go
the
when they
war.
got there?
What?
Where did they go when they got there?
I don't know exactly where they go when they got there, but I know that they traveled. They were in the south a little bit, and then they went to the center.
There was nothing. Israel wasn't established.
Yeah, you
There
see a
was
picture.
nothing
You
in
see my
Israel. It was
picture. This is
desert.
it's like it's air digging and like it's desert all around. It's like she's in the middle of nowhere. It's like that what. And then they went to the center to Emek Hefer, where she met my grandfather. And the story was that when they met, they lived in Emek Hefer. It was like a hill in the middle of nothing in Emek Hefer. And if you wanted, you took a donkey, like a day walk to Hedera, which was the closest area, and to buy like groceries for a week. So you eat all week because it's so far. You go once, so you don't.
And we are worried for the kids
Yeah, to go.
15 minutes to the school.
So I just want to say something, because my father was telling us a lot of stories, even before the war, what happened. And now, whatever happens here now with the colleges and that demonstration and everything, and it comes back, the certain story what my father was telling me. And he said it started in the university, in Germany, in Hungary, in Czechoslovakia. The young generation was influenced, and the propaganda, that's what they start. My father was a gymnastic, he was a sport person, and he was doing competition, he's supposed to go to the Olympic in 1930s, because he was very good. He was, and because he was Jewish, they didn't let him go, and that was in 1930s, And I had a doctor who wanted to be a doctor, a Hungarian person, and he couldn't go to the university to be a doctor because he was Jewish. So after the war he went, and he was a doctor here in the United States, was a very good doctor. So they stopped the Jewish people to go further education, even before Hitlerism, before the war. So, after that, my father decided he's going to Paris, and he was there for 6 years, and France was free. I mean, France, they didn't have anti-Semitism that time, and then he came back to Hungary, and he met my mother, so he got stuck in Hungary, and that's why. That's how it started, anti-Semitism. And I'm telling my kids and I'm telling my grandkids, they have to fight it. This has to be stopped, because it's not a good omen for that, And I don't know. Maybe have to educate the young people, and they have to know it. So I have one more story, what I remember that, because that was before we went to the, when Hitler came in and the Germans came into Hungary, that day, right away, they start to collect the Jews, and they start to, they didn't even wait a day, something like that. So we still lived in the same apartment where we used to live. And one day, the Nazis came in, and I don't know, was German soldiers too probably, and they said everybody has to go down to the courtyard. And you can take with you only little things, not much, and just So we all went down, my mother, my grandmother, and my father wasn't home anymore. And then they made a line, and we start marching. I was 5 years old, my brother was 3 years old, and we were going, and we didn't know where we were going, and just going and going. And then my brother asked my mother, "Mom, where are we going? I'm tired, I can't go anymore." Or what? And one of the guy I think was a Nazi because he spoke Hungarian. He said, you're going to not far, you're going like little dogs in line and you go to the synagogue. Like that. My mother said, what synagogue? What are you talking about? What they gonna do to us now, to take us in the synagogue? And was 10,000 of people all over from Budapest, you know? It's not only from our, you know, all the Jews from Budapest. Was a very big synagogue in not far from the Jewish center, and they had a couple of floors, and sure enough, they opened the door, and everybody just went there. You have to go in, and thousands people went there, and they locked the door, and that was it. And was no beds, no nothing, no, I don't think was toilet in there or whatever, and just a seat. They didn't have enough seat, people were sitting on the floor. So we were locked there, and we were waiting what happened. 3 days we were locked in that synagogue, you know, and I don't remember what we ate because I don't think they give us food, whatever we took along, you know, or whatever. There was a terrible situation, and then people were screaming, and they start screaming the family name. You are here, you are there, you know, I'm looking for this and this person, I'm looking for that. So 3 days later, they opened the door and they let us out. And we went back to the apartment. This I remember exactly. And what was the reason for that and what they did, we didn't know. So after that, my parents put us into the Red Cross, the Swedish Red Cross, and then after that, they went to the ghetto. You know, my mother and grandmother, and yeah, so that's how they operate these things, you know.
I have a question. I'm wondering if you ever asked your parents, because Hungary was relatively late invaded by the Germans. Did they, I'm guessing that they knew what was happening surrounding, no, nothing? Because
No.
I'm wondering, because I'm asking the same question today, like what
That's-
are we not seeing, or should we, or what
We
will be?
we should now definitely see what's going on in the whole world. Yeah, that they didn't, because I asked and I said, if you know what happened in Romania, you'll happen in Czechoslovakia, in Poland, you know, because in Poland they start the Auschwitz, you know, to take the people to Auschwitz much earlier. And nobody knew that. Nobody knew that. I don't know why people didn't come. Even people who came and said, look what's happened, what we saw, they don't believe him. They said no. And they said, oh, it's past. Don't worry. It's going to happen now. It's going to pass. It's not. And that's what I asked. You know, we were talking about that. And even my father said, we didn't know. We lived in Hungary. Hungary was the last country who was taken from the German. I mean, the German occupied them, yeah. And that's why we only lost 800,000 people, you know?
Because it's very quick.
It was quick.
Yeah.
It was very quick. He did that 1, 2, 3, you know? And that's why. It was almost almost end of the war, because the Russia was involved, the American was involved already in the war, so he knew that you know, something gonna happen. That they didn't know. Nobody knew that, or they didn't want to believe it. Such a thing happened.
I think also it's important for the kids to know the history, and also to know how to fight. Like my son's at Rutgers, He was a wrestling champion here at Frisch. He knows how to handle himself, and he knows how to answer. And he goes into the encampments and he engages, and he's like, okay, he finds people that will talk it out, to be. And then he comes home with questions, or he comes back with questions. He's like, oh, well, this one said this and that, and I don't understand how I'm supposed to answer. And then he'll find people that will answer it so that he's able to answer. And I just think those are the two things that are important. The kids need to be confident enough to know that, that they're strong enough to fight and have the confidence, whether it's Krav Maga or wrestling or judo or something like that. And also just to know the history and to know that they're right. And it's possible that we can stand alone. Abraham stood alone is the only one. And you can be right and stand alone, and we're right.
My husband from Satmar, his father was accountant, and he was educated in Germany, in the German university, and he was a very, very religious man. And when it started, he heard about that, what Hitler is doing, and he said, this is not good. You can't trust the Germans, and you can't trust Hitler. It's not really good. So they lived in Satmar, and they lived in only small houses, one family houses around there. And he went and he dig a big bunker under the house. And he said, if anything happened, they have to go there and they have to hide there. Because the Hitler is not going to let the Jewish people live. They're going to kill everybody. And sure enough, when he heard they collecting the people from Satmar and they take them away, right away he collect his family. They were about 11 children, his own. He took in 2 cousins, lady cousins, and plus him and his wife. It's a small place, And they went there daytime, they went down daytime. Nighttime they came up and they were looking for food. They were still, not stealing, they put away somewhere food or what. One day, everybody, they did that for a month or 2 months, something like that. And small kids, they get sick, they get hungry, they start crying, And one day, the 2 cousins came up middle of the night, and was early in the morning, not in the night, and they were washing, they cleaning themselves up, and suddenly they heard the door is opening in the yard, and they went and they spilled out the water on the floor, in the garden, and they ran back to the bunker, and sure enough, the Germans came. And they were looking, and they said it was not raining today, and it's where the water comes. So they start to look for where this water is coming, and they find a place where they were hiding. So they opened the tap, and they said, come up, And my father-in-law said, be quiet, don't say a word, I'm going up, and that's it. And he said, I'm alone here. Well, I go up, and the kids start to cry, and sure enough, the German said, if you don't come up, I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot everybody about. They came up. Everybody came up from there, and they took everybody away. Besides, my husband and his sister survived, And that was the last transport from Romania, as Hungary, belonged to Hungary that time, Satmar. And that was the last transport in July to go to Auschwitz. Yeah. So that's why I said, I don't know if I could compare the situation today to what happened. That you can trust. That's what I believe. I don't trust too much on these things, and that's why I said I'm not a youngster. I wish I would be younger and do more, whatever I'm doing. I try whatever possible, and I try to educate the young generation. And you have to be strong, and you have to learn how to fight,
And not to be afraid.
not to be afraid.
Right.
Not to be afraid, that's all. Not to be afraid. You know, you have to stand up for yourself. You know, not just for yourself, for everybody, all the Jewish people. You have to stand up, and thank God we have Israel today, so at least we have a backup. That time was no Israel. We couldn't run, we couldn't go. You know, I tell my kids, have your passport ready? I'm going.
All your kids were born here or in Israel?
Here.
Here?
Yeah, they were born here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Is anybody?
You're very welcome. Anything?
Anybody questions?
Thank you for
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you learned something. You know, you could.
It triggers a lot of stories.
Yeah, it's a lot of stories and a lot of things to say, you know, and it's unfortunately, you know, it's happened because it's people telling me, how come you remember, and I remember, and I have in front of me a lot of times I sit down and think, and you know, and so I even went back to Hungary, and I wanted to see the apartment where we were in the ghetto. You know, I wanted to make sure if I remember clearly how was the, and I did. I went back and I saw it, and that was there, and the park is there. You know, the park is a dog park now. They made out of that a dog park. The park is there, and a market is there. They made you know. Still vegetable and all kind of things. Jewish community is around there, you know, and yeah. So I went to school. After the war, I went to school because that's the only place was Talmud Torah, you know, in that area. So we went to school over there.
What is the atmosphere today in Hungary comparing to other European countries?
To what?
What is the atmosphere in Hungary comparing to other countries like France and England?
What is the atmosphere in Hungary?
In terms of we were just talking
Today.
about
No,
it before. Hungary closed their borders.
Yeah,
they
Hungary-
didn't allow anybody in.
Yeah,
In
Hungary is
much
with
better than any
Israel now.
country.
Hungary is with Israel now. The prime minister in Hungary, I'm not so sure. They said he's Jewish. That's what they said. Orban. His name is Orban, and they said they think he's Jewish, and he is with Israel. You know, he's backing up Israel, and he closed the border now, and he doesn't let anybody in there. You know.
Since the fall of the USSR in '89, Hungary and Israel developed a very warm relationship, mainly based on military and security exchange. I had the chance to work at the embassy in Hungary in '96. They just love us. It's whatever you want, whatever you say. Hungarian military units and police officers going to Israel to train. Israel is sending instructor and equipment to Hungary. There is a lot of military contract. A lot of Israeli students are learning medicine in Hungary. And when everything started in Syria a few years back,
Yeah,
they said we don't care. They closed the border and said that it's not for us. And they get a lot of criticism from Europe for that, but they're like, that's your problem, not ours. So
Them and Poland, by the way, both of them
Yeah,
closed
Poland
the border.
and
And now they are laughing at all the countries because they have zero problem. Zero problem.
But does Poland like Jews or they?
That I'm not sure. Let's be
Yeah,
clear.
very, very
Anti-Semitism
same.
exists
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Also in
Yeah.
Hungary.
even Hungary.
It exists. But their situation is so much better compared to
Yeah.
France, Holland, or Amsterdam. Like, you can't even
They have the
compare.
pure anti-Semitism versus the Islamic ones.
Yeah.
They kept the original one, the old version.
No, and Hungary was anti-Semitism all the time, even when was communism, you know. And they try not to have anti-Semitism when was communism. They still had, you know, because we were coming out from school and they made a remark, look at the Jews, you know, like that. And it's happened when I went back from here once, and I was walking on the street, and two guys turned around and said, "Oh, she's Jewish too." I said, "Excuse me, what do you say?" I speak Hungarian, and I said in Hungarian, "You know what you say? Let me hear what you say." And they ran away. So it's always. It's not that it's not. At least the situation is better than anywhere else, you know. Yeah.
There is the famous story about the head of the neo-Nazi party in Hungary. I don't know how many
Oh
years
yes,
ago.
I
He,
saw that before.
he was the head of the neo-Nazi party in Hungary. He was, and then he discovered that he was from Jewish descent. Not only that, his grandmother hid the tattoo for years upon years, even though she knew that he was the head of the neo-Nazi party. And I don't remember exactly the story.
Yeah,
how it
I remember,
came
I
out.
saw that.
He saw it or something and started asking questions, and suddenly everything fell apart, and the party disowned.
Fell apart.
Yeah,
It
like
fell apart.
it's a very famous. Not recent. It's
Must have been the last.
But the
70
movie,
years.
the
no,
movie.
no,
movie.
it's much more. It's much more than that. It's like I would
And then
say
he went to
50.
Israel and he got married and he has children there. Yes.
I don't know if he went, but he
He
became
went in
a
Israel.
Chabadnik.
Yeah, he
And
got
something like
Yeah, I read
that.
about it. I remember reading about it.
Yeah, it's a famous story because she wore only long sleeve shirts because she had the tattoo.
That's right. That was a problem because it's a lot of times, you know, people who came back from Auschwitz and they give up their religion. You know, they said that this could happen. Why should I be religious? I don't believe anything. You know, a lot of people. So that's happened in Hungary, and I know even. It was very interesting. It's not even they give up after the war. They give up after the revolution when they came to Canada. I knew a family who was very religious when was the communism, you know, and they had 3 girls, and they got, I think one got married or 2 in Hungary, then they came, and they ate strictly kosher, you know, the father was very religious, everything, and they came to Canada, and I met them here in United States once, and asked me, "You are still keeping kosher, and you still?" I said, "Yeah, sure. What are you talking about?" She said to me, "No, we don't do it because so many good things in here. We could eat everything." I said, "You, whose father was so, you know, religious and everything." He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's right." So that's the problem, and was a problem after the war. You know, after the war also people give up.
It happened. It worked both ways. There were people who said, "God saved me," and they turned to
Yeah.
God. My grandfather was also a Holocaust survivor. He was the sole survivor in his family. No one survived except for him. He was one of 6 kids, no parents, no one. And people asked him afterwards, "How do you believe in God still?" He said, "How do you believe in man?" It was man who made the choice to, you know, associate themselves in such, you know, terrible
Yeah,
behaviors.
yeah,
And
that's right.
for his whole life, he was strong.
Yeah, it's like
believer.
that. It's like that. Somehow, you know, I remember that, you know, my father said when was the revolution, you know, my father said that we have to leave. We have to go, we have to leave, you know? And we had a beautiful apartment and then, you know, they were making a living already or whatever. And I didn't understand why my father said, you know, I was 16, 17 years old. My brother was 14, 15, you know. And why my father said we have to leave. We didn't escape when it was a revolution. We couldn't escape. And now suddenly he said, so then I find out because a lot of Jewish people left in Hungary and the revolution. And my parents was afraid if I'm gonna get mixed up with a non-Jew, you know, and I get married. You know, like that. So after I told my parents, you didn't have to worry about it because it wouldn't happen. You know, that was really, it was a very important things for my parents. You know. There's some people, I have a classmate who got married non-Jew and there was a terrible life they had there. You know. It's still there, still in Hungary, and it's still, yeah. It's, you know, whatever.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very
You're
much.
welcome. Anytime. My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and listen to the stories.
Definitely.